acoustic could intercept.
All right, we'd like to welcome everyone out. We've got a full house tonight here at the Chamber, and we're excited for that. And we welcome all those who are watching on TV. This is pretty cool. I've asked Corey Slaymaker to come up and give us an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to attend city council meeting. We're thankful for our mayor and council and city leaders and all the work and effort they put in to help guide and direct this great city that we live in. We're thankful for the citizens of Spanish Fork and all the volunteers and the hours that they give back to the community to help make our city what it is. And we're thankful for all the blessings that we have. Please bless each of us tonight, and we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I've asked Councilman Mendenhall to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The audience would please rise and repeat the pledge after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started, too, you notice we're all wearing blue up here. Last week was Kiplyn Davis Day. As you all know, Kiplyn Davis was a young girl that was went missing, and it's been over 20 years. But we still want to keep her in our minds and thoughts and prayers. And her favorite color was blue, and so. Her sister asked me if we'd all wear blue today, and so that's why you see us all wearing blue. So we want to just be aware of that, what's going on with all the missing children out there, and remember them and look out for our kids. And then it worked out really well. We got all these officers wearing blue, so it served a double purpose. Okay, speaking of the officers, Chief, would you like to come up? And this is the fun part here.
I know the council mayor knows this, but just for the public's information, we had two officers retire this past year. They were sergeants, Sergeant Mitchell and Sergeant Sheriff. And so that brought us down two people. And then the council agreed to allow us to increase our force to 3 additional officers. So we were down basically 5 individuals, 5 bodies. And we were able to have a hiring process where many people applied, which I'm very grateful for. There's a sentiment out there with a lot of other agencies that they don't have enough people applying for jobs. But for some reason, we're not in that boat. I think we had, according to Lieutenant Anderson, we had over 100 applications. Not all 100 of them were the quality people that we wanted, but 100 people applied. And I think that goes to show the quality of department that we have, individuals that are there, and then for certain the support that our officers get from the mayor and council. It means a lot. And as I go around to the different communities in relationship to spending time with other chiefs, I find that I have nothing to complain about. This is the best city to work for, best council and mayor to work for, and I do truly appreciate that. Having said that, I'd like to introduce to you our 5 new officers that came from that pool of 100, maybe even a little bit more than 100. So I'll just start off. We got Marcus Benoff. Stand up here, Marcus. And then Spencer Nelson, Mason Balmer, Colin Carter, and Zach Fossil. These are our new recruits. Zach and Colin both have a little over 10 years of service. They're on the other end here. That's pretty good. Bookend this. And then the 3 in the middle here are new to the job, new to the profession. But we all were at one time, and like I told one of their dads, that when they come to our job, they're going to have a lot of dads helping them with their job, teaching them what they need to know and what they need to learn. So, Mayor, we'd like to invite you to give them the oath of office.
I'd love to do that. So what I'll have you guys do is turn around and face everyone that way. And when I go through, I'll say aye, and each of you say your names all together. And then repeat after what I say. All right? I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
I will discharge my duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Well done. Welcome, Spencer. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us. I think I've heard a little bit about you. Hope it's only good. Greg here's my best friend. Oh, yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite guys. You told me that. Great to have you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Now, do they all know that Mayor drives a horse and buggy and not to give him a ticket?
Yeah,
It's
that's
kind of
first,
an unwritten rule.
first thing you want to do is make sure
He drives
you know what I drive.
1987 Pinto. You could see it down Center Street.
I know it. Hey, thanks for coming. We appreciate all of you. And we got a great police force. I'll tell you what, couldn't ask for a better group that will go out there and protect and serve us. And we appreciate each one and the sacrifices that they make in this call, in this job that they have. So we're excited to have these new ones to join our force. So that's awesome. Okay, Employee of the Quarter.
Mayor, it's an honor to have Christy come up. Christy works in our office. She's worked there for how many years?
13.
13 years. And she's a wizard. She's the master of the SFCN billing, and she works hard. She knows how to solve problems, which the scheduling, all the installs, the questions in billing, anything to do with cable TV is not a easy thing to understand, but Christy does a great job at it, and I'm proud that she is the employee of the quarter for us.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, you're going to have her say a few words, aren't you? You get to say a few words.
Oh, no.
Here, then give me that back.
I just appreciate it. I like working here, and I have a lot of family here, so it's good.
Great. Thank you for
Appreciate you.
what you do. Okay. Let's move into our public comments. Anyone here would like to address the mayor and the council? You're welcome to come up, state your name, and if you've got something on the agenda in our public hearing, we'd ask you to wait till then if there's a specific item that's on our agenda. If not, come on up and talk to us. You get a whole 3 minutes.
Does this thing raise up?
If you pick it up, and it looks like you could.
Yeah, maybe. I've been going to Zoo Wire. So, my name is David Kincaid. I want to thank you for your service, for giving me the opportunity to address you tonight. Since this is being filmed, I want to tell the great people of the YouTube universe that Spanish Fork has been a blessing to me and my family. We moved here 6 years ago, And I really can't say enough about how welcoming and accepting this community has been. I didn't grow up here, but I have sincerely felt like this has become my hometown. I brought my friend Pona along. We both are interested in talking to you tonight about the speed on 1700 East. We both live on 1700 East, and we love spending time with I think the oldest kid between we both have 4 kids apiece. The oldest one's only 10. We love spending time in front of our homes, playing baseball on our lawns, playing basketball in the street. And so we feel that we have a very good perspective on maybe the average speed on 1700 East. Coming from my office on Main Street home, I know that there is only one posted speed limit sign heading south from Canyon Road to the Bluff, posting 25 miles per hour, and bless their heart, the person whose yard that occupies, they haven't cut back the tree in a long time. So you can hardly tell that that's the posted speed limit, and I think a lot of people have gotten a sense that you can just go as fast as you want to go. I've seen cement truck drivers looking at their cell phones as they're going to get Vincent Ridge foundations placed. So my ask tonight is that funds be allocated to place more speed limit signs or other speed mitigation processes the police officers are doing a wonderful job to be there. I know that I even the other weekend saw a posting, I don't know how much time I have, the awesome, speed limit telling you how fast you're going. I even observed people going 37, but they slowed down when they got to that. I would love to see one of those solar-powered speed limit signs that's on, I think there's one posted right now on 400 East, about 650 North. I'd love to see one of those right by Canyon Elementary. I mean, there are a lot of kids, my own children included, Pona's children included, walking to and from school on 1700 East. I think that this would be a great move to even step up Spanish Fork one more step to be even more welcoming as children are coming to and from as we're playing in front of our yards. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Do you want me to stand there and
badger? No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, you've done well. You look good on TV.
I won't look so good on TV. They say that that's 5 extra pounds, so maybe like 50 for me.
Well, just because you're shorter.
I am shorter. Mayor, Council, appreciate the time. My name is Pona Sitake. I'm Dave's neighbor. We live right there on 1700 East. I've been a resident of Spanish Fork since before I was married. Yeah, we came and we got our place here, and we got married. We've been here for about 13, 14 years since. We love it here. So I appreciate all your hard work making our community safe. Thank you. Just to echo what Dave says, within 100 South on 1700 East, there are about 5 different families with about 4 children each, all under the age of 10. So that there's quite a number of homes there. 1,000 South, sorry. 1,000 South and about 1700 East. And there's an intersection there, and we know that zoning is an issue. Enforcement, as an attorney for the Utah County Attorney's Office, I've dealt with zoning before, and I know it's difficult. It's hard to enforce. And at that intersection, there are 3 fences that are out of compliance. And so that intersection is quite dangerous, actually. People come around the corner going pretty quick. And it's about a half mile, quarter mile down the road from Canyon Road, so people come zipping around Canyon Road, and I feel like they just gun it. And so, community safety, public safety for the children. Larson Elementary is not too far away from this area. Canyon Elementary is also right there. A lot of children during school time. And so I would just echo, my ask would be the same as Dave's, if we can get some kind of speed mitigation device there, preferably sooner, before 1,000 South. But wherever we can, I'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We could probably, Chris, you'll look into that, and so we'll get our public work guy on that. And thank you for coming and pointing that out to us. We appreciate that. That's what it's all about, coming and voice a concern, and let's see what we can do, because we want to take care of those kids. you know, and you too, because you probably run out in the road before, haven't you? Not looked both ways.
Yeah, well, I didn't leave much of the car.
Yeah, there, I assumed that. All right, thank you. Anyone else would like to come and address the mayor? Come on up here. I know, thanks for waiting your time.
Welcome. My name is Tiana Van Bloom. I live in the new flagship development, and I have a concern I'd like to bring to your attention. So recently there's been some pretty big rain, and we have received a substantial amount of flooding in our flagship development. It is on Stallion and Whitehorse Drive if you're pulling it up off of Expressway. So it has affected the houses both on Stallion Drive and the east side of Whitehorse Drive. Chris Thompson, I believe you're here. I don't recognize you without your cool rain jacket on. Sorry.
Wow.
So he came out on. So he was there last Tuesday night and was able to see the flooding when it was most severe. I wanted to bring this to the attention of the council because I and the others in our development believe that the city has a role to play in correcting the poor development decisions of Flagship due to the city's role in approving the development plans. Our community has experienced 2 homes have flooded, multiple yards have flooded, rock walls have washed out and lost structural integrity, dirt around houses have sunk, part of the foundations have sunk and washed away, multiple air-conditioned units have tilted and sunk as well. There's multiple homes with sinkholes caused by failure to install proper guttering. This has resulted in driveway and porches that have needed to be replaced. Versions of this problem have been affecting our development since 2017. Flagship has done little to correct the issue, and none of their supposed solutions have done anything to alleviate the problem. Our neighborhood is confused as to why the city is continuing to sign off on designs and issue certificates of occupancies to homes that have been putting others at risk, residents' homes at risk. It is forecasted to continue raining in the coming days, and there are going to be more damages done if we don't have a solution implemented soon. As homeowners, we have little recourse that we can take to correct this, and we are asking the city to step in and help us protect our homes.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well,
Thank you.
Obviously, Chris.
Chris is going to come speak to that.
Yeah, that raincoat didn't do much good. I was pretty wet by the time we were done up there. And, you know, to describe the problem that they have is there's quite a hill here. And so these houses, which are being built after these houses, are all up on this hill. And where none of their backyards are finished, it's just dirt and it's smashwork clay. The rainwater hits that clay and it collects and it goes down into these houses that have been there a bit longer, and some of them have backyards. Typically, believe it or not, this is a really common issue. My subdivision is completely flat, and until everyone got their backyards in, several basements flooded because they were at the low parts of the development, and so this is a really common issue throughout the city. Usually it's completely resolved when people put in their backyards. But that being said, we were looking at it and trying to see what the city could do. We do not dictate how people landscape their yards, and we've looked at doing that a few times as far as drainage goes, and all 3 times we looked at that, we decided not to create those type of ordinances that govern that. A couple of cities in Utah have done that, and it's caused a lot of enforcement issues for them, and so we don't currently do that. And so when someone has water leaving their property onto someone else's, that's been a civil matter where I think, Junior, it's a trespassing matter. If your water goes onto someone else's lot is kind of how we've been taught to explain it to residents, and they need to work that out with their neighbors. But there is something that is kind of new to Spanish Fork, as we've gotten an MS4 permit, and that is we have an overall permit for the development which says that stormwater can't get into erosion and sediment can't get into our storm drain. And so we're exploring ways we can possibly go back on the developer and try to get them through notice of violations to try to rectify this issue. More than likely, since those permits go to the homeowners after the developer sells it, that might transfer to the homeowners, and they might get some sort of a notice of violation saying they have to stop the water from coming in. And really, the answer is for all these people to get grass in their backyards and to work on how they filled their backyards so that it's not so close to the edge. And granted, that's them and their developer who did that. But boy, I really feel for these people. I really liked all of them as I spent the evening with them the other night, and we are doing everything we possibly can to help them. But there's some limits to what we can do, I guess.
Thank you. And I appreciate you coming and bringing that out to our attention. Anyone else would like to come up and address the mayor and the council? All right, seeing none, let's go to council comments. Let's start with Councilman Gordon.
Mayor, I don't see Heather Youd from the chamber.
I see
hi,
her.
there she is. She's hiding behind. Dave's blocking her.
Way to go, you two.
Well, I don't want to steal all your thunder, so Heather, why don't you come up and tell us kind of what's cooking with the chamber?
All right, we have a somewhat busy month in May. So our business of the month for May is Cookie Crave. If you were there, it was great. They gave us free cookies.
Yep.
You missed out if you weren't there. The American Legion is doing their 3rd annual Walk for Life. It ran today and it will run again tomorrow. That's for all the 5th graders within Spanish Fork in Salem. They go and learn about military life and speak with veterans and kind of get a different appreciation for that. We have our Rotary Chamber golf tournament tomorrow. I know some of you are coming. Dress warm. It's going to rain. So.
Oh, thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
But we have gone through and looked at all of the scholarship applications. We had 43 applications this year. Unfortunately, we couldn't award them all, but we are giving out 25 $1,500 scholarships this year. So, awesome. Yeah, there's a lot this year. Thursday, we have a ribbon cutting for Teriyaki Madness. That's just up by Cafe Rio. On the 15th, we'll have our new networking luncheon. We were going to have Gail Halverson, but he's not able to make it, so we don't know yet who the speaker will be. We'll announce that. On the 16th, we will have a ribbon cutting for Canyon Self-Storage. They're just right up at the mouth of the canyon. The 23rd, Jameson Homes, their ribbon cutting will be in our office. She works from home. And then the last thing I have is June 1st, the Wolfsburg on Main. Dave and I have been working on that one, so should be good.
And food trucks on Friday night.
Oh, yes, food trucks every Friday night. They've been going really well. I've had good feedback on that, so.
Both the Volkswagen show and the food trucks are both behind the library.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather's doing a wonderful job with the chamber. If you are involved locally with business, she's a wonderful contact. Get with her, and it's like everything. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So thank you for all you do. I think that's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Rotary Golf Tournament, Chamber Golf Tournament tomorrow. That's what Rotary Club's been up to, is coordinating with the Chamber and making that a success. And just dress warm. They were worried this morning. They're like, it's going to rain, 60% chance. It rains. We still golf. You play. And there's a big facility to go inside and get warm. They'll turn the fireplace on. And
Someone will bring me hot chocolate.
someone will bring you hot chocolate. I'll bet we could arrange that, Mayor.
All I want.
But yeah, it's we're full and really thankful to all the businesses that stepped up, sponsored a team, and made a difference in kids' lives to get off to a good start in college with those scholarships. Appreciate the mayor touching on the anniversary of Kiplyn Davis going missing. As many of you know, in the community, the caliber of the Davis family. and Richard. I've called him Uncle Richard since I was a little kid, but just to let you know what kind of family that is, I had a brother that graduated from the doctorate program up at the U, and Richard, on that day where it's a day of a tough time for his family, is the kind of guy who reaches out to other people, reaches out to other family people in the community, and thinks of them first. So that sure stood out to me, and I've known that for a long time, the caliber of man he is, and he confirmed it just the other day. So we miss you, Kiplyn, and this community won't ever forget you. One other thing, the Active and Healthy Committee is continuing to teach QPR classes. They just taught up at Sierra Bonita Elementary School, up by our house, my house where I live, and taught some of the teachers and staff up there the QPR program. It takes an hour to learn, but if you remember what the CPR program is, QPR is the life-saving tools that someone can learn to maybe help save a life if somebody's struggling in mental health. So question, persuade, and refer if somebody's having some thoughts of suicide. I wanted to point out one of our QPR trainers that has had to take a little bit of time off teaching those classes for a minute. Again, this just speaks to the kind of people that we have in our community. Christy Wilkins has been instrumental in starting that program and running that program for us. If you'll indulge me, I'll read this real quick. This is a post that she posted today, and she says, "I've received so many cards and gifts, and I'm so grateful for all of your support. You'll never know how much your messages and prayers are sustaining me. I had to post this, one, because it's extra special and so adorable. Johnny is our next door neighbor and 9 years old. The Kramers are so amazing and have been dealing with their own cancer crisis for 2 years now. Their now 7-year-old McCade has been fighting leukemia for 2 years and is my hero. He came to show me his port when we thought I was getting one and told me how to be brave like him. We've been praying for McCade, and if we ever forget, Kinley reminds us. Every day, Johnny is McCade's older brother, and he and his dad have been taking care of our lawn already. His dad, John, is the grass whisperer, and he is. If you drive by John Kramer's house, holy cow, Brennan, makes yours look like a dump."
That's not a good example.
I was going to say, that really does.
That's not hard to do.
It's hard to do.
Just say something like the cemetery or something.
He's trying to keep up with Donnie Dunn,
Oh,
you know?
there you go.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm there, yeah.
she says, "We just love the Kramers and their amazing attitude and service in the midst of their own incredible trials. They are such good friends and the best neighbors anyone could ask for. Hopefully you can see his card." I think I took a picture of the card there, Scott, that is the next picture. But long story short, what you have is neighbors that are taking care of neighbors that are both touched by trial. Christy Wilkins is going through her own struggles, but I can promise you the teaching that she has done in the community of training many people, probably hundreds of people now, if not thousands, in the QPR program is a legacy that'll stay with our city forever and help people through their trials when they need help. So Christy, I want to give a special shout out to her. She has really helped us with the Active and Healthy group and with the QPR training, and our thoughts and prayers are with her from the city.
Definitely.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Scobes.
Mayor, a couple of things to report on. The Veterans Council, we're a step closer to building scheduling and management on that. We'll be meeting the first part of June, so just so you're aware. Hopefully that will all be resolved and there'll be new scheduling for the building. So that's a lot of progress and a lot of more longer time, but that's great headway and great work there. The animal shelter, they've put out their numbers in the month of April. They dealt with 392 animals, just the shelter here. That's everything from animals being impounded, rescued, adopted, and euthanized. They're doing a great work there. We're still working on their budget and have a meeting next week, Monday the 13th, to finalize their budget. but they're doing a great job despite the numbers that are coming in. So right now, spring, summer, your pets are getting out, families are out. Make sure you know where your pets are, and make sure they've got the shots they need, the tags they need, and keep them and your neighbors safe. The Fine Arts Committee, the Youth Art Festival, registration for that is May 8th, and that's where kids up through high school can participate in music, dance, art, literature, drama. The festival itself will run June 3 through the 14th. Registration again on May 8th for that. There are some fees for the different courses, classes that they do, but they've got a great lineup for that. And then lastly, the Utah Lake Commission, June 1st is the Utah Lake Festival. All are involved, or all are invited to participate in that, where you go out to Utah Lake. There's education on June sucker, which is a native species fish that has been on the extinction or near extinction list for some time, and so they're working on rehabilitation there, as well as clearing out the Phragmites, which is an invasive weed, and other things to help clean up the lake. They're doing a great job with it, and if you've noticed over the past few years, granted with the cleanup from Geneva and things that are taking place, some of that naturally is occurring, but they're doing a great job, Utah Lake Commission, in making sure that they clean it up, that they work with local communities to make it a recreation area, more like it had been, I guess, back before the polluting days, as they say. So a lot of things happening. Spring, summer's a great time. As Mr. Kincaid had mentioned, the whole year is a great time in Spanish Fork. Myself moving to the community as well. Absolutely fantastic community, and the things that I hear in the circles I run in and out and around, continued praise from people that don't even live here. So I think people like you and I made a great choice to move here. So appreciate your comments on that. But great time to be out and active in the community, and just look for all the postings of activities and things coming up, finalizing with the rodeo and other things the early part of the fall. That's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Councilmember Beck.
Okay, I want to start with this morning at the Freedom Walk. Several of us were there, and that's post 68, where the veterans this is their third annual Freedom Walk for fifth graders that come through from just in Spanish Fork and Salem area. The opening morning, the veterans feed elected officials, so mayor and council and Nebo School District and the Chamber of Commerce, and they feed us, and we just get to sit around for a little while and listen to their fun stories, so you can just scroll through those. But lots of volunteer hours, meetings throughout the years, and cute Mark McKell, he watches us every week, he said, but the fifth graders were coming and excited, and so like we said, that was today and will continue in tomorrow. And then for Fiesta Days, applications are being accepted for the Spanish Fork's Got Talent. You can just hop online under events to apply. It's ages 5 and older, and anything like singing, dancing, comedians, whatever you've got that you'd like to share, that will be on the 23rd of July, that evening. I was going to bring a picture of Mayor Leifson dancing last year.
Oh,
You're so lucky I forgot
you.
that.
Yeah,
Dang it.
That wasn't a lot of talent going on at all there.
Yeah. Okay. Yesterday I was able to participate in something new here in our county. It's the Utah Leadership Council, and it's just an opportunity where local elected officials, not only mayors and councils, but also school board members, can get together and share best practices throughout the valley. There's not a lot of opportunity. We have to get this. There's not a lot of opportunity to meet like that and share ideas, and so it's just something new that's starting up. So I hope to see that to expand and become bigger and more beneficial to us. The Youth City Council had a fundraiser at Wikiwash on Saturday, and they drive cars for 4 hours to raise funds to purchase a new canine for the police. Do you know how much okay, I don't know either. I'll have to report next time. So I was happy to hear that. The library will be having, do you know? $777. And a new K-9 is about 5,000?
Almost. It's a good
Okay,
down
so we
payment.
need to have a couple more fundraisers. Okay. That's awesome. The library summer reading program, we can start signing up in 2 weeks for that. There's adults, teens, and kids, and there are going to be a lot of fantastic prizes. Last year, I believe there were over 600 participants. So for those people that say people don't go to the library anymore, the library is very busy during the summer months, and it's a fun place. You register because then you can report how many books you read, and then you're entered into a lot of different drawings. And I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, you notice that Councilman Argal's not here. He had a family issue that he had to go to, so we'd like to excuse him and hope all is well with his family at this time. Let me just report, I went to our MAG meeting. That's our mayor's meeting of all in the county and our transportation. We were told in that meeting that they have allotted funds for an overpass between us and Springville. And so we're excited for that. We've been fighting, trying to get this overpass, get us a second overpass there. Huh? Interchange, excuse me. And so they have allotted funds for that. They're in the midst right now doing their environmental impact study on it. So we're hoping in the next 3 to 4 years we'll have a new interchange there that will make it a lot nicer. That'll serve 3 cities. Ourselves, Springville, and Mapleton. Plus, with the new hospital being built, that'll help alleviate some of the traffic off of Highway 6. They also allotted money for us on our widening of Center Street, at the top of Center Street and Highway 6. And so we received all the funds on that. And so you'll see some activity of that starting soon to widen that on the top of Center Street. So we're excited for that and to see that happen. And then I'll touch one more time like I do every time about the trails, especially down by the river. The rivers are still running very high right now, so they're a great place to go walk, but be careful with your kids. You know, we don't want to lose anybody on the trails. You might see a few snakes. They're harmless. There are little snakes there. I've noticed we counted about 4 the other day. And I got to see 2 brown bunny rabbits that are new. Yep. Yeah. I think you did. So be careful on the trails and use them. That's what they're there for. And we see a lot of people down using those trails, and we appreciate those people who use that. Okay, let's move on to consent item.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second?
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing, Ordinance 09-19, amending billboard requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the proposal is fairly straightforward. There are changes proposed both to Titles 5 and 15 because of the changes that are proposed to Title 15. This is a public hearing. And just to put it, I guess, as succinctly as I can, it's been my understanding in the time that I've worked for Spanish Fork City that the intent of the city's regulations for billboards really have been to not allow for new billboards to be built in Spanish Fork. And over the years, we found that different regulations that we had in place relative to how far apart billboards needed to be from one another, or places that they could or could not be relative to their proximity to certain mileposts, and even their proximity to I-15 regulations that we have that we thought required them to be a certain distance from the interstate, for example, really haven't been effective at limiting the construction of new billboards in the community, at least not to the extent that we thought they were or would be. And for that extent, the proposal now simply would make things, I believe, more clear and straightforward by prohibiting outright the construction of new billboards in the community. It would make existing billboards non-conforming uses. And again, I think this is really not a change relative to the intent of the city's code and the regulations that we have in place for billboards, as much as it is just clarifying what we're hoping to accomplish with the regulations that we have. Of course, there are very clear, I think, and some maybe less clear regulations that are provided at the state level and the state code relative to the rights that are associated with billboards. And obviously, no changes that we would make to our local regulations would impact that aspect in any way. So we would certainly continue to respect all of the rights associated with billboards, as I think we have in the past, relative to what's outlined in the state law. And the last thing that I'll just mention, we don't really like to be pioneers when it comes to land use regulation. We don't want to be cutting edge. I think there is a little bit of security that we enjoy as we look maybe to other communities as maybe good models to follow or models maybe to avoid following. And just relative to the approach that we're recommending that you approve today, in a very, very brief bit of research that we did a few weeks ago, we identified these communities here. You see some small, some large, some with proximity to I-15, others maybe with less, but they all take an approach that's similar to what we're recommending, again, that you consider tonight.
Good deal. This will be a public hearing, so I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
A motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Anyone would like to come and talk about this ordinance, you're welcome to come on up. And you get 3 minutes. I know that's hard for you, Jamie.
That's probably true.
Can you
I
state your name?
didn't. My name's Jamie Evans. I own Evans Companies. And as we go through here, the way the ordinance is right now is that the property owners of Spanish Fork have rights. The rights are, out of these 23 billboards, they have the option of competing for everybody else. That's the way the rights are now. We can use an example. We'll use your own sign. Your own sign. Do you guys know how many signs, how many billboards you have? Do you know how many you have? You have 2. You have 2. You have 2 billboards. So your own billboard, will use it. Right now, you have a contract with Reagan, and I read your contract, and you happen to have an interest in it. You're probably the only one at all. But if another property owner has a billboard on their property, and this law passes, they have no competition. So if I have a billboard on your property, and my lease is coming up, you get to negotiate with me, nobody else. Because the opportunity to rebuild the sign is gone. The only one that has control is then the owner of the billboard. That's the way the code reads. So to try to sum that up, you're taking away the rights of the property owners and you're giving it to 3 billboard companies. There are 3 billboard companies in here that you're giving it to. Myself is one of them. I own all the property I have mine on, and I have perpetual easements. You're giving the rest to Reagan and Yesco. We are the 3 billboard owners here. So you're taking away the rights from the property owners, and you're giving it to 3 billboard companies. And I'm one of those 3. The ordinance. Let's talk about the specifics in the ordinance. The first one, when you read the first ordinance, it says number A must be 100 feet from the asphalt. That's something that's pretty new. Every ordinance you have in the city is from the right-of-way. I don't understand why that's there the way it is 100 feet from the asphalt and not the right-of-way. And going through that, it should be from the right-of-way. And this causes confusion to the existing billboard owners that are there. Because under the state code, there's this many billboards in the city. These billboards get to be moved around the city for the state code. So we get to move the billboards around the city according to the state code. And if it's within 100 feet of the asphalt or not, it doesn't matter. The state code will rule in this code, and probably B also, the 500 feet from the neighborhood only causes confusion because that's not what the state code says. And if we put the billboard within 100 feet of the asphalt or not, and the city wants to take the approach that they don't want the billboard to go there, according to the state code, the city has committed eminent domain, which then they have the right to take us to court and take the billboard from us and buy it. So both of these ordinances here, 500 feet from residential and 100 feet from the asphalt, just causes more confusion. That should be taken out if you're going to pass the ordinance. And then down here on number F, it says the Department of Transportation must approve the billboard location prior to the city approval. That's contradictory to the state. The state says the city has to produce it, and we have to have a building permit before we can apply for the state permit. So that portion of the code is also in contradiction to the state code. So you guys get to make the decision, and the vote was split 50-50, and I know you'll hear from some property owners here. Do you want to pass the law to put the power to the billboard companies, or do you want to leave the code the way it is so all the property owners can compete for those locations? I want to finish up with one thing. These billboard locations are worth a couple of $100,000 if you have the right to compete for them. So if you have a billboard on your property, I'm willing to pay $200,000 to rebuild that sign. So out of 20 signs, depending on the location, but the average is worth about $200,000. If you pass this law, you have taken away $200,000 on each parcel of these properties that you have of rights. And I would appreciate it if you didn't take the property rights away and give it to the billboard companies.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else like to come up and talk about this?
My name's Morgan Fife. I represent Reagan Outdoor Advertising. I'm here for the Spanish Forks Got Talent tryouts. Is that right now?
Yes, thank you for coming so quickly. What do you do?
Well, we can talk about it later.
Birds, one stone.
Yeah, that's right. So it's been stated at various times throughout this process that this new ordinance would not impact the 3 billboards that Reagan has that are currently down. Specifically, there are 3 billboards on the south part of Maine with the expansion there that have been taken down. The city and Reagan are in the midst of negotiating whether or not those will be condemned or moved to a new location. And so we just want to confirm again on the record, it's been stated at earlier hearings, but we want to confirm again on the record that those 3 billboards won't be included within, they won't be excluded by this new by the new cap if this ordinance is passed, and specifically that Reagan will retain their rights in relation to those 3 billboards. So that's really at the heart of where we're at on this. I don't have much else.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try out later.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll make this quick. My name is Braden Saunders. I represent Yesco Outdoor Media. We currently have 2 billboards in the city limits. The 2 points that I wanted to make is one, the previous ordinance, as I understand it, only allowed billboards in industrial areas along I-15, and had pretty strict regulations for us to follow. I don't see personally why it's necessary to go ahead and completely ban them. If we can build 1 or 2 down the road in 20 years, I don't think it really adversely affects the city. The other thing I wanted to touch on was with this proposed language, as it's kind of already been hit on, some of the restrictions are already more restrictive than what the state has, and with this ordinance as well that's being proposed, they would also be more restrictive than what the state code allows when we relocate a billboard. I think it would be in the city's best interest to have an ordinance that is in line with what the state requires as well. They'd make it easier on everybody's in everybody's case. So that's really all I wanted to mention. We, really value our billboards here, and we'd like to make sure that they stay standing forever if possible. And we see the growth here as well. It's definitely an area we'd like to expand in the future if there's an opportunity. So,
great.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Braden.
Good evening, Mayor. Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor, Council, members. My name is Guy Larson. I represent Reagan Outdoor Advertising out of Salt Lake City. And I've been with Reagan for over 20 years, and I've had the pleasure, and I do say pleasure, of working with Spanish Fork City on a number of occasions over those 20 years in relocating, erecting new signs, billboards in the city, and it's always been a pleasure to do so. I just want to speak out. I want to echo what Mr. Evans says about there's some issues with your proposed ordinance here. I concur with him that we've had difficulty. I've personally had difficulty over the years because UDOT does ask for a city permit prior to the issuance of a state permit, and that's always caused some major headache, and so that we would request that to be changed. The other issue that I want to echo, Mr. Evans, is the 100 feet from the asphalt. Sometimes you have a frontage road that runs next to the interstate, and it sometimes isn't possible to get that sign within 100 feet of the asphalt. Mr. Evans is correct that the right-of-way is typically used, and we would even actually ask if that 100 feet couldn't be extended. Sometimes the 100 feet just isn't obtainable. The other thing I wanted to say, and I'll just conclude with this, is that we certainly didn't ask for this. We've maintained signs here. Billboards are necessary. Your fine community uses our billboards for public service, for when somebody's gone missing or something tragic has happened. Billboards are used. Your community uses them. We certainly didn't ask for this, as I said. What is the proposal before you is equitable. It's a great ordinance, other than some slight changes. And if you're not going to go to an ideal, I appreciate the other ordinances that have been placed up on the screen, the other cities, excuse me. If you're not going to go to a true cap and replace, which allow movement of signs when certain occasions occur, the widening of a road, redevelopment, if you're not going to go to a true cap and replace, which is the ability for that sign company to take that sign and put it in a bank account and move that sign, take that footage out of the bank and relocate it. If you're not going to go to that type of ordinance, we certainly want an ordinance where you don't take the ability to negotiate a lease out of our hands. In other words, the exact opposite of what Mr. Evans said, that, to move a sign, it's costly. We don't like to move signs. We like to keep them there. It's a hassle for the property owners. We certainly would like to see an ordinance that allows for us to negotiate a lease with our property owners and not be bootstrapped, if you will. Once again, I've had the privilege of working in your city, and I echo Yesco. If there's an opportunity to down the road to add a sign or two as Spanish Fork grows, we certainly would like to see that. Not a proliferation of signs, but certainly as you grow, we'd like to be able to add additional signs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else like to come up?
I just had a question.
You need to come up here because they want to. The 17 million people want to see you on TV.
No, I just had a
and
question.
You need to state your name.
Richard Erickson. I have the two signs down here on this place of mine. What I was wondering is, now does that give these folks the right, or does that to maintain these signs, or the city is going to extract that so that they have to tear these signs down in negotiations or whatever?
Tell you what, we'll have one of our guys answer that as soon as we go out of closed session, but they'll note that question. And so he'll answer that as soon as we go out of closed session. Or public hearing, excuse me, I get them mixed up. Been here too long. So, anyone else? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Gordon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Junior, you want to answer a whole bunch of those questions? Especially...
Well, I'll do my best. Let me start with Mr. Erickson's. The ordinance as it drafted will allow the current billboards to remain. Would allow them to, when the lease expires, to extend that lease. So if the property owner, however, wants the billboard gone, the lease runs out, the ordinance as drafted wouldn't allow it to be replaced. But for existing billboards, you know, if the owner and the billboard company want to keep them there, they can keep them there indefinitely. So it's not going to affect the ones that you have.
I got a question. Go with that.
Okay.
Lease runs out, billboards are there.
You can only
deal with the billboard company that's on the property, or can you deal with all billboard companies?
The way it's written, probably the one that's there. But you control, you know, the property owner is going to control that negotiation. Because if they're valuable, as Mr. Evans indicated, you know, they're going to want to keep them there. If I could remember all that, let me go to
feet of the asphalt.
Let me go to Mr. Fife's question on you know, the 3 billboards. That was initiated prior to the bill being presented, or the ordinance being presented. So we've tried to address that by, this pointer's not very good, it's purple, by putting in the April 1st. So clearly the intent is that they've got the rights to their 3, and they're in the process of having to relocate those because of the widening of the highway. And so, you know, we've had that discussion a couple of weeks ago. We'll continue to work with them and negotiate with them and work that out. We will acknowledge their rights to the 3 as they existed, and we'll move from there. On number F, you know, Mr. Evans is correct there. UDOT won't approve it until we probably ought to move the period and put it after location. We issue building permits that are conditional on getting a UDOT permit, and the courts have upheld that, so that's effective, but that is going to create both us and them some problems.
And I think A.
Asphalt.
The asphalt, up to the council, the state law doesn't necessarily address that. Our current ordinance says 100 feet from the right-of-way. That is typical. But I think that's pretty much your call on that. One other change, I think the 500 feet from a residential district is similar to the state law, certainly is appropriate. We used to have in there residential district or use. After we went through the planning commission, we took the or use off. That can create some issues if there's a caretaker facility, and we didn't want to run into that question. That's just an aesthetic issue. So we don't have currently a coloring issue or a coloring requirement. So, you know, the city was looking at, let's make it so they don't stand out, that they kind of blend in a little bit better, and then we're thinking of a dark color. Part of the challenge with that, and you know, that wasn't addressed in the public hearing, but some of the sign companies have their unique colors, similar like a Walmart or a Target or something has their colors, and that may be where you run into an issue there. And I don't know how big of an issue that is, but that's the question there, and that's why they're looking through the planning commission for a darker color so it doesn't stand out quite as much. And I don't know how big of an issue that is.
I think you kind of left it wide open there with dark, drab, or dull. So that
Pretty much eliminates,
he's pretty.
Make an ugly billboard.
pretty much eliminates silver or white or
Yeah.
yellow, some of those.
Sky blue, pink, or something like
Sky
that.
blue would probably blend in really well, actually. One other thing, they talked about, capping and not replacing. The other thing you could do is just cap the number, allow them to be moved around a little bit. That's what Mr. Larson referred to. That's an option. This proposes that over time, they kind of be amortized. They might eventually go away. If you did a cap and trade type of thing, you would cap the number that we have now and wouldn't allow any additional, but you'd always allow that number. So that's another
So do we
option.
know how many billboards we have in our city right now?
6 or 7?
23.
Everybody know?
23?
Which includes the 3 Reagan ones that have been referenced.
Okay,
So I was way off.
So what, yeah, well, you're close, but,
Close if you're playing with bombs.
so 23, so what you're saying in this, if, explain to me the cap, so if they cap, then they can move that somewhere else. So we'll have 23 signs, we won't go any more than 23 signs, is that correct?
Right. And the way this is written, the idea is to cut that back from 23 to some lesser number.
And so as for the property owner, if he has a lease, that lease comes up and it expires, he can renew that lease, so you can keep having that billboard there as long
Right,
as you want.
but let's say the owner was tired of it and didn't renew the lease, and later sold the property, or he died and his family inherited the property. They couldn't then renew it because that sign's gone now, that ability to have that number of signs. So we would move from 23 to 22 in that
If
instance.
they chose to non-renew the lease, correct?
If either party chose, if the sign company elected not to. Now, that's probably not likely to happen, so in all likelihood, if the property owner says, I'm tired of the sign, I don't want to deal with it anymore, I just don't want it there, then we move from 23 to 22. If we did a cap and trade, we would allow 23. Can't go on that property because they don't want the lease, but if there's another location that fits the criteria, they could move it there. Now, that's partly why we're bringing this, is the city thought that by the way we defined where a billboard can go with our zoning, we didn't believe there was anywhere they could go anyway, but turned out there was a place for 1 or 2 more. Can that happen again? Perhaps. So that was the thinking, is let's not just willy-nilly move them around. Let's leave them where they're at. If they go away permanently. And the other option, let's not allow an expansion, so if somebody can find another place to go and they want 24, no, we're capped at 23. But if that location goes and there's another location that's available that meets all of the state and city requirements, then we can remain at 23.
Great,
Confuse everybody
I
completely.
think so.
Did a good job then, probably.
For me, it seems
Hey,
as
we're
though
out of
it's...
public hearing, but I'll allow you, Junior, I'll allow that.
What are you going to do when you annex, and when you annex the stuff, there's 5 more billboards on that property when you annex it?
Well, if they're already there, then they become non-conforming. They come in, they can stay, and that may increase the amount. Now, if we annex and there's not any there couldn't be any new ones go there.
So if they annex and you're already there, then they stay.
Yeah, so it'd be a typical land use type thing. If we annex, so a property that has a house on it that, because it's an old county road and we need to widen it and it becomes non-conforming, it can still stay. It's just a non-conforming structure there on that parcel.
Okay.
So if the billboard exists, it can remain as non-conforming. If it doesn't exist, it can't be added.
Junior, we showed those other cities and as examples, and a lot of this verbiage has been, I think Dave stated that, but I'm trying to get a better understanding as how close is, this verbiage to Provo, Springville, some similar
I didn't
cities.
work on this. This was largely Brandon up in planning, and so I don't know. I understand that nothing was created new. He just looked at what the others had and kind of picked and chose. So this is probably a conglomeration of several of them.
Great, any other questions?
My one question, well, somebody, but the idea of the one company, the one billboard company, being the only person, maybe it speaks to the free market aspect of it, and I doubt that that company would say, hey, we want to still keep that as long as we want to renew this lease and keep going. They're going to offer the landowner the market value to do that. Is there a reason, specific reason, why we wouldn't want if there's 3 billboard companies to be able to approach that landowner at the lease expiration and want to pick up that lease?
I don't think that's any concern for the city at all, really.
Not a concern.
I don't believe so. I think from our perspective, we want to respect that as a use, that site and so forth. If there are contractual issues that would need to be worked out between a property owner and a billboard company, typically we want to stay out of those.
Sure. And I don't find that language in here.
They have to file for another permit and things like that if that were to transfer from one company to the next.
It's happened
and so then that's
before,
going to be
and
problematic.
we have not been involved in that at all. I can think of one billboard company that was purchased by another company here, or outdoor advertising company that was purchased by another in recent years, and ownership
just changed.
Learned about that well after the fact.
So that's something that had to be worked out between the property owner and the billboard companies.
That's my understanding. I'm looking to Junior.
Company, yeah, right.
Company.
You have multiple companies on your, yeah.
So I think that's how it's already read, is it not?
That's certainly how we would treat it,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so, good.
May I just clarify one thing? Relative to the comparison we'd make with other communities.
Thank you.
They have the word prohibit. So that might be the main thing that we were looking for there. Mr. Baker's right, that was somebody in our office that did the research there, and that was what we were looking for, communities that took the approach of prohibiting any new billboards in their cities.
Any other questions?
I have a question, either to the billboard companies or to city staff. I've read a lot recently in Utah code on billboards and legislation that's been passed for that, and I couldn't find, is there, the existing billboards are paper frame, in short, it's a poster, I'll simplify it, it's a giant poster. What would need to take place to turn that poster into LEDs? You see them on I-15 where they're now TV screens. Again, I'm oversimplifying. Is that something that the city controls? Is there permitting? Is that something the state? Is that something that the companies, when they deem the feasibility of doing so, they do it regardless of state or city? How does that work?
I'm going to continue to look to Mr. Baker to coach here and to correct anything that I get wrong. But there are communities that have developed regulations that would address perhaps where you can and can't have some kind of digital or non-static sign copy. They might regulate how often advertising can turn over and the brightness of those signs and different things like that. Frankly, I think it's for good reason that Spanish Fork City hasn't adopted any such regulations. State law does have requirements in place that define some of, I think, the fundamental things that a community would be concerned about if somebody switched from static copy to digital copy. And right now, the way the ordinance reads, we're silent on that, I guess, is the way to put it. The ordinance is silent relative to whether somebody has to continue to have the vinyls or they could put up the LEDs. If they did want to switch over to digital copy, it'd just be a matter of applying for a building permit to make that happen.
And that would, the building permit with the city?
With the city, I'm not aware of a process that somebody might have to go through with UDOT, who incidentally is kind of the regulatory body at the state level for billboards, for permitting. But we would certainly issue permits to make that conversion if somebody wanted to. Am I getting anything wrong there? Okay.
So that's somewhat of a gray area. As we've talked to various experts and consultants, the consensus seems to be that we probably can't prohibit though somebody wants to convert it. Some cities have tried that. They've ended up in the expensive litigation. The results are mixed. What we can do, as Dave noted, is make some regulations. We can address how close to residential areas they can be, how bright they can be. We can maybe require them to turn them off or down at nighttime make some regulations like that. It's probably a good idea as we're growing that we do that. We thought about mixing it in with this one, but that complicated enough. We thought let's address them separately. When you get into the LEDs and the regulation on lighting, it can become kind of complex, and it's probably better to keep them separate and deal with them separately. But we probably ought to look at doing that sometime in the near future.
So if I understand correctly, then the general thought is if a city were to try to prohibit any type of LEDs for displays, that it would be very litigious.
Yeah, quite probable that it wouldn't be successful.
Okay, so I appreciate that. And the reason why I bring that up, and Mayor, if you'd allow me to, I guess, to storytell a little bit.
You'll have a choice.
No. I mentioned this, property rights have been brought up, and that's something that I know the council, I'll speak for myself since I'm the one speaking, property rights feel very strong about, have for the time I've been on the council. One concern I have is that property rights, for as much as we want to defend property rights, they're also infringed upon, either by our neighbor that's, building something. In this case, I'll use the billboards as a neighbor, so to speak, a neighboring business. I find it problematic that billboards that exist could be turned into, and again, I'm oversimplifying so that people in TV land, I'm not talking down to anyone, just for the ease of understanding. I find it problematic that the posters could be turned into giant TV screens without the city doing anything to change, curtail, perhaps, change the brightness or at least things in the ordinance, but the city can't stop that. And the things that I've seen so far with Title 72 Transportation Code, Chapter 7 Protection of Highways Act, that's one of the issues that I find is that despite changes and things, as is mentioned, I'm okay with multiple companies being in the discussions instead of just one for renewing a lease. But a city increasingly has less and less opportunity to tailor their community with regard to this particular business. Lobbying efforts and things aside, I'm not going down that route, but just the fact that cities are losing more and more control over their own communities. And so due to the fact that it would be very expensive for a city to get into a lawsuit or litigation with the companies, and it sounds like the cities would lose, these giant posters would turn into TV screens without neighbors really having much input. And I'm not suggesting that the billboard companies are bad. I'm not suggesting that at all, that they would do it without public input, without talking to neighbors, without talking to the landowners. I'm just saying that is a possibility and that the cities can't control that. Another issue, Chapter 7, Part 5, Section 514, Landscape Control Program. Property owners could grow trees in their backyards to shade the sun, the setting sun to the west. If those trees or any landscaping gets high enough that from the roadway they obstruct the view of a 50-foot, 100-foot billboard, they can be forced by Utah code to take down those trees or trim them or take care of any landscaping that would obscure view of a 50-foot, 100-foot thing in the sky if it obscures the view from the roadway. And so I find that, again, we're talking about property rights, and the landowners have the right to be able to earn money with leases, but at the same time, a neighboring property would have to abide by a lower tree height, lower landscape, so that that big billboard can be seen by people as they drive by. I see that business as infringing on the property rights of the neighbors. And so those are some of the concerns that I have. Again, not vilifying any particular business, but I find as a city, worried about the city has fewer and fewer controls per state law as to what can and can't be allowed in the city. And so I like the fact that we're taking an opportunity to look at the future growth of Spanish Fork and saying, we are limited in what we can do, and so the few marbles we get to play with, these are the decisions that we make. The last little part, and this is the story, Mayor, I appreciate the time. My in-laws live up by the gun club, up by the reservoir. And I know 4th of July, it's great to be able to go up there and see the fireworks and things like that. Again, this goes back to the poster versus TV. Since the cities can't regulate that and can't restrict, personally, I find it a travesty on 4th of July or any other time to look out over the valley and have TV screens lit up as I'm trying to look out at city streets or the sunset, those types of things. And so, again, that's just a personal choice. What some people find pretty, I don't, and what I find pretty, others don't. So those are just two things respective to property rights that I do find problematic and at least support the direction that we're looking at.
You done?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else?
With me being in advertising, I say we strike letter E. That's a dark and drab and dull ad.
So you're okay with the
A nice, inviting, uplifting.
fluorescent green billboard?
No, it can't be a billboard.
Well,
I mean,
it's not, if you strike it, then we don't have it there.
well, then say don't do fluorescent. But to say it has to be dark, drab, and dull.
This is the post, not the
sign, just the post.
Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Advertising.
Structure. Forgot the structure.
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything else now.
Oh, don't. No, God. All right.
I'm like, wow.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 09-19, amending billboard requirements. With the change of F, moving the punctual, I never was good at punctuation, the period after location, per Junior's recommendation.
Okay. Got a motion by Councilman Gordon.
With that, are we addressing the one leasee versus multiple leasees, or no?
Is that included? Is that in there?
I couldn't find that restrictive language when I read it, but
We could interpret it that way. I mean, it's very negotiated. We don't even know about it probably. So yeah, you don't see that specifically in there. And if they just negotiate and that happens, we probably don't know about it. When we would know about it is if they're changing companies and the first company decides to take their pole down, then we'd know about it. We would notice that. And the position, the way it reads, is probably it's gone. You can't put another one there. But if a company negotiated to just pick up the pole and keep going with a different company, we'd never know the difference.
So they can do that. According to this ordinance, they'll be able to negotiate with other.
Well, if the pole remains.
I got a person here shaking his head, but
Well,
you're telling me, of course, you're a lawyer, and I think you've gone to law school, so I don't know.
If the pole remains, because we wouldn't ever know.
But is the question that billboard company A is not going to let their pole stand up for billboard company B to negotiate to come in there?
Yeah, that's the thing that probably, I don't know how that would go. They'd have to, the new company have to negotiate with the new owner, with the property owner, and with the old billboard company to get the pole.
And here's maybe.
If the pole came down, we would observe that.
Sure. So if
then we would say it's gone.
Say like Erickson's here has a lease with Billboard A company, and they don't like them. The lease ends. They want to negotiate with another billboard company, but the previous billboard guy said, well, that's my pole. I built that. I put it there. He would have to take his billboard down if that lease wasn't, but the pole would stay there forever unless he negotiated something.
Well, the owner generally doesn't own the pole. The billboard company can take it with them.
Yeah, but if he chooses, he says, no, if I can't lease it, nobody can.
Yeah, so that possibly could happen. On the other hand, you've capped the number. You've made the value of that property owner's, his property value just skyrocketed.
But to answer Councilman Mendenhall's deal, those people can negotiate with another.
Well, they can, but the challenge is if you have to replace the pole, it's gone, and we would see that.
All right, so to answer your question before, can you negotiate with another billboard company? Probably not.
It'd be hard.
Yeah. Which I can see the logistics of that, you know.
But your company's probably not going to let that pole go, right?
I think honestly,
That's
Yeah.
more of a reality. And
And my question is, so now we can't negotiate. They can say, well, they're only worth 10 cents a month.
You can say they're worth $1 million a month.
Well, they keep telling us they're worth millions every time when they come into us
Yeah,
and say, so until they negotiate with you guys then, and then it's nothing. I see how you guys work, you know?
See what I'm saying? So if
But you know, if you, and what you could do is just say, okay, well, you don't have anything there and it goes away, you know? And I know it's a loss to you, but they have to negotiate in good faith. It's just like any competition and anything else. You got to negotiate in good. They want the billboard. I'm sure they want the billboard. You know, and whatever they're paying you now is probably worth more when your lease ends. So I can't imagine them not wanting to continue on and, you know, paying you. I mean, yeah, that's the reality of it. So, I mean, we can't force, as a city, we can't force, you know, they own that pole. We can't say, okay, the lease is in, you got to tear it out. That's between the property owner and you and the billboard company. You know, we're not going to get involved in that. So that's not our role. That's your role. Okay.
motion stands.
We've got a motion. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second with the amendment of F, getting it right so it reads correctly with the UDOT and
Period.
Yep.
Okay, since this is an ordinance, it'll be a roll call vote. Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. All right, new business. Brent Voorhees fence approval request. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for coming.
I think the council likely will remember a project that was approved in 2018 where Mr. Voorhees requested infill overlay approval to be able to add 2 basement apartments to a duplex that he has. It's 275 East, 300 North. That project was approved, and as part of that discussion, there was some talk relative to whether it made sense in a case like his to require the construction of a masonry wall adjacent to single-family homes. And through subsequent discussions, an ordinance amendment was proposed and approved by the council that allows, instead of a masonry wall to be required automatically, that the city council could waive that requirement if you find that another type of fence is a suitable buffer or transition between a project like this and, again, single-family homes on adjacent properties. In light of that, along the western property line of Mr. Voorhees' property, this here is 300 North, so north in this case is to our right, so again along the western property line, back to his parcel line here, Mr. Voorhees has proposed that instead of a masonry wall, he construct a vinyl fence that would have this look to it, with that white and tan color combination. And frankly, I think this is consistent with the things that we talked about before. However, it does require the council's approval, again, in the form of waiving the requirement for the masonry wall where you find that a fence such as this one would be a suitable alternate.
All right, any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Brent Voorhees fence. Is that?
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scopes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. All right, ordinance 10-19, prohibiting overnight parking in city-owned public parking lots.
Thank you, Mayor. So the city has been working hard in the recent few years to help provide more parking in our Main Street shopping district. And as we've done that, a couple of the newer acquisitions that we've got are relatively small. So we felt like, we don't need nor want people going in and parking overnight. We don't want people parking their trailers there, their boats there. So we put together an ordinance that makes it unlawful to park a vehicle in a city-owned public parking lot between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. We hope that's sufficiently narrow time that employees, if they need, can use those places. So we have currently 2 locations. We just purchased another one this afternoon. We'll have the title on that in a couple of days. But we own the one behind the fire station. That's a fairly large one. So we did make an exception there that if we've got public safety personnel that call out, our ambulance, our firefighters, they can park there during those hours. They need to do that. The other one we have is the small one next to the old telephone building there on 2nd North, across from Zion's Bank parking lot. That's pretty small, and so we want to make sure that we don't allow overnight parking in there. And then the other one we just purchased is the one here on Main Street between the barber shop and MVP Sports. So that one also is pretty small. So we felt that, to protect that public parking, to help out our Main Street merchants, that we needed to prohibit overnight parking. So this is all the more that does. Questions about that?
Just whether people can continue to park overnight in other, say, Walmart parking lot.
If Walmart allows that, we don't prohibit that. Now, we have an ordinance that prohibit parking a vehicle there to sell it. Most of our merchants have not wanted that, so that was something we worked with the chamber and the merchants years and years ago and did. So if you're parking your vehicle there for days on end with the for sale sign in it, and that's the purpose, you can't do that. But if Walmart wants to allow people to park in their parking lot and stay overnight,
Acceptable.
We're not addressing that. This is just city-owned public parking.
Understood. Thanks for clarifying.
Any other questions, comments, editorials? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 1019, prohibiting overnight parking in city-owned public parking lots.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. This also is a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scope.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Passes. Resolution 19-09, amending the Spanish Fork City Employment Personnel Policy concerning personal use of city equipment.
During the most recent legislative session, the legislature passed House Bill 163, which further clarified personal use of public property. And so we've had in our policy manual for our employees in the past information on how they can and can't use communications equipment. We haven't, however, clearly addressed how they could use other personal property. And so what this change to the policy would do is it would not allow Spanish Fork City property to be used for personal business, home projects, personal gain. So, Mayor, if you wanted to use the power and light bucket truck to put your lights up on your house on the top eaves,
Oh, no.
Whoa, come on.
you wouldn't be able to do that anymore, unfortunately.
Right.
Now he's got to stop.
Eesh.
So it clarifies.
What about Chief's taser? He likes to take that down to the trail, shoot snakes.
Shoot snakes?
That's what he was trying. That's what he was.
Is that what he
earlier.
called?
You didn't
Is that,
hear him?
No. Any questions on the changes to the policy?
It's just, is it mostly, as I read through it, communication devices, laptops and things? Does it address like vehicles, those that have?
In the top section, so in 1.20.95.055, it addresses more of the overall property. So, for example, where it talks about home projects, there was another city that had somebody using the boring machine to bore underneath their driveway to put in, a sprinkler system, landscaping, things like that. So it would address any property that belongs to the city couldn't be used for home projects or for your business, your personal business.
I think vehicles, that's with the approval of their division manager.
So let me address it. We have separate provisions in the policy that already address vehicles. So the police, for instance, we allow them to take them home. We allow a certain radius that they can go. People who are on call, we allow them to take vehicles home. So those are addressed specifically elsewhere. So this is thought to address the smaller items that typically we don't have any issue with, laptops, cell phones, things like that. There may be some others, but generally your equipment, don't fall into that category. And what's driving this is, I don't remember if it's House Bill or Senate Bill 163 that just passed, and this is to protect our employees. It's creating some criminal sanctions for unauthorized use. We just wanted to make sure we've authorized the use we want our employees to use. So this is actually to protect them. And vehicles aren't covered here because they're covered already elsewhere in the policy.
Good enough. Thanks, Tyler. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 19-09, amending the Spanish Fork City Employee Personnel Policy concerning personal use of city equipment.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilmember Beck. Roll call vote. Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Schoves.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Wendy Gordon.
What?
Wendy.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wendy.
Wendy.
Okay.
Well, you were out of breath trying
Can
to do
we
that.
have next meeting address the personnel policy and bullying?
Nice try.
Wendy?
Wendy.
Okay.
Wendy. 3-year garbage collection contract extension.
Oh, my goodness.
One of our big issues at the transfer station is what's called load leveling, and that is on Mondays we have a huge amount of garbage brought to the transfer station because 3 of the cities in the district do most all their hauling on Monday, and then Tuesday is the next biggest because that's the other day we do our hauling, and as we've tackled this problem, looked at ways to solve it. One of the things that we feel like is important is that the cities align when they bid out their garbage collection. And so this is a 3-year contract. Typically we do 5-year contracts, but what this will allow us to do is line up with Salem on their garbage collection days. So it includes an increased cost, but we have compared that cost with recently bid out contracts in the valley, and it's still, we feel like is less than if we would go to bid on this. So, and Republic's been doing a good job for us. We recently had a couple residents call in and thank us for some little things that Republic's drivers have gone out of their way to help out a resident. So we'd recommend that you approve this contract.
Are we changing our days? We're the same days, Monday,
Nope.
Tuesdays?
Days are staying the same for now.
They're staying for now, but we are looking for ways in which we can swap days with another city up north to help with some of that load. So we are trying, it's a long process, but we're trying to get that done.
Load leveling is a big ship, and you have to turn it slowly, and we're working on that.
You'll let me know when I got to start filling up my neighbor's can, which day that is.
Well, your new transfer station will probably be fixed before you.
There you go. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the 3-year garbage and recycling collection contract extension with Republic.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Resolution 19-10, approving the municipal wastewater planning program.
This is...
Hey, I'm trying to do something up here. I don't need you yelling.
Can I be excused?
You're excused, he can't be. Holy cow, you know, you're going in the penalty box. So, Resolution 19-10, approving the municipal wastewater planning program self-reliance report for 2018.
This is a report that the state requires every year. It needs to be approved by resolution by the city council. The gist of the report is that we are treating the wastewater appropriately, but it does talk about the fact that our plant is really aging. There's a lot of issues down there that equipment that needs to either be replaced or upgraded, and we're going through a process of evaluating that. Today we met as a committee with Councilman Argyle to select 3 firms that will actually go in, evaluate the overall treatment plant, and make recommendations on the most cost-effective and what we're going to call regulation-proof ways of going forward in upgrading or fixing the plant. And those 3 proposals will come in, and we will select one based on cost and what we think would be the best, as well as it requires that we can use the other 2 ideas, proposals ideas, to integrate in with whichever proposal we select. So we're excited about that process. One of the things that, as we've looked at all the options, whatever it will be very costly. And so this recommends gradually raising rates over the next 6 years to be prepared for these upgrades. We feel like if this is done correctly, we will arrive at a much lower rate than where all of the other treatment plants are arriving right now. And so we feel like this is a good way to look ahead and plan.
Great. Any questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 19-10, approving the municipal wastewater planning program self-assessment report for 2018.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. Roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
That passes. Station 62, Construction Management General Contract.
You put on a tie, Keith.
Hey,
I like
look
it.
at that.
Has he been to a key?
I don't know if he's ever been here.
They wear green. They wear green at their council.
My name is Keith Broadhead, for the 17 million that are listening,
Hey, you
watching.
know what we got?
I am the project manager for the new Station 62. So we're here tonight to present to you the proposed contract for Westland Construction. They were, a few of you were involved with our interviews and selection of contractors after we got through scoring the capabilities, their past work, and calling and checking with all of their references, which were very, very good. All the school districts, Provo City, everybody they've worked for, just were very happy with them, or else they got paid well, one of the 2 from. Which one was it, Nick? Whatever you want. So back here in the back is Nick Sly. He's with Westland Construction. He's here to answer any questions you might have about the contract or anything else. But as you see here, we have this is the floor plan that has been selected by the committee, and I think everybody kind of knows who the committee is, right? So with this, where did that budget go? That one. This is the budget for the whole project, and Westland's cost is in the new construction. So actually, their bid or cost will be $282,000 to do the project management. plus 2.5% of the cost of the building. And we based that 2.5% off of a $4.1 million building. So, Nick, do you know the total cost? What?
Sorry.
The 285 plus 2%, 3% of $4 million is $120,000 more dollars. Plus, they're helping us do the design. So this is what is called a construction management general contractor. So the first phase of this, they meet with us and the architect, and we actually value engineer this thing as it's designed. So when it's all done and Westland is ready to give us, they will actually give us a guaranteed maximum price for this building. So what you're seeing is kind of high. We're thinking we're going to come in with a couple $100,000 contingency. Now, part of their price, guaranteed price, is a contingency that they'll put in there. It's what is your percentage, Nick?
Anywhere between 3 and 5%.
So somewhere. So with the value engineering, we don't feel we need as big of contingency. So in Santaquin, we've done this on a couple of projects, and we've never, ever went over. We've always had money left over. So it's a good process. The contractor likes it. The engineers like it. I think you guys are going to really like it when we don't come to you with change orders. Change orders...
Nick already told me he wasn't ever going to do that.
They're not. The only change orders that will come will be from us.
Yep.
So if we decide we want something different, then... So anyway, that's the nuts and bolts of it. Any questions for me or for...
Well, on that note, Keith, if you remember in the interview process, one important thing that Mr. Houghton's always said is that he doesn't mark up change orders. And having come from construction a little bit, that was always an opportunity to really gouge the owner of the project. And so I appreciated that was one, with many other things that we really appreciated through that interview process.
Right,
So
and that is in the contract. There's a big zero there. So
that's cool.
These guys are, most of them are local. Grew up, went to your high schools, so they're really interested. I think they want to do a good job and kind of put a monument up for them and us that we can all be proud of. So we're happy with them. We think you guys will too. So.
I'll say one more thing. Keith and his group have really worked their tails off to this point. It's really been a great, he's being smart, but...
Well, the mayor was there half a day.
Yeah, he was late. He showed up late and left early.
Right.
So thank you very much, Keith. We really
appreciate all your
the work
support.
you've been doing.
Yes, Keith has done a great job, and we appreciate
It's not
that.
me. I mean, we've got a great group.
We do.
Tyler helps a bunch on the budget end of it, so we've all got our own little parts. So I think you should see groundbreaking September-ish.
Yeah, so Nick, don't screw it up.
We know where you live now.
He's a Don.
He's a Don.
He's a Don.
He'll be all right.
He used to be a Santaquinite, and he moved out to come over here. He was my neighbor for a long time. But
Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
I'm not holding that against him.
On behalf of the city, we'd like to... I was going to say...
Thanks, Dick. Thanks, Dick. So anyway, one thing you might want to think about is if you want to have a groundbreaking ceremony for it.
Sure we do.
We can
set that
talk
up.
about that. And
something like this, we want to have that.
Okay.
Foam out of the trucks. Shooting foam out of fire
Yeah, we
trucks.
could do that, couldn't we? We'll do it on a warm day and a not so windy day.
All right.
Any other questions for us or Nick or the chief?
If not,
So much.
I would entertain a motion to approve the construction management general contractor contract.
Stacy probably wants to do this one.
No, Kira's looking
All right,
at
I'll do it. I move to approve the Station 62 Construction Management General Contractor contract with Westland Construction.
And a motion by Councilman Scobes,
Second?
second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Nick.
That is
There you
cool.
go, buddy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Tyler.
He's got a strong beard game.
Tell him I need to talk to him later. Okay. Tentative budget FY 20.
Stop it.
No, this is,
Oh, he's in his happy place.
I woke up this morning at 5:15. I felt like it was Christmas morning.
No, you
I did. I absolutely did. I did. Ask the, what? What'd you say?
I said I felt like it was the first day of school.
Just the same.
I don't know, that's
Just
an
the
exciting time for some.
Ask the utility office clerk, or utility billing clerks. They'll tell you, you think it's what for why? But before we get into the budget, I have to say, sitting through the interviews and listening to Westland Construction and knowing what they have started to do before this contract was approved here formally, I'm very impressed with them as a company and the individuals that they have working for them. They've sat through at least one meeting and started already participating in the value engineering process before having it secured through this contract that you approved today. So an upstanding group of individuals, and we're really excited to have them be a part of this team. Mayor and council, we're very excited to present to you the tentative budget for fiscal year 2020. This is kind of a special year, that being 2020. I think all of us that grew up or have spent time watching television in the 80s and 90s, we've seen television shows like 2020. We watched Brandon, stay with me. We watched Back to the Future, and we saw, they would catapult in the future, 2015. 2020 is a special year, right, with the 2020. So we're starting the budget for this year, and this is a time in Spanish Fork's history where we are on a precipice of a lot of growth. And it's not just unique to Spanish Fork, right? The growth is happening in all of Utah County, and in many ways it's fantastic, and in many ways it's not fantastic. If we could stop growth in the community, a lot of people, and including many of us, would say we'd love to stop growth because we love how the community is. But that's really just not an option. And so with growth, we have to plan, and we have to provide services, we have to adjust. And this budget does a lot to carry Spanish Fork into the future and in doing many, many things. So we will start, Finance Director Kent Clark and I will spend the next 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Good, I'm glad they're going to be here by themselves.
Talking about the budget.
Reader's Digest version. Chris has heard that many times.
And I will listen as intently as Chris does. Would you click on that screen for me, please? So the budget this year, tentative budget, as we present it, has $105 million in the budget. Last year's tentative budget was about $97 million, so there's an increase in the budget. Most of that increase, as you'll see, will come in capital projects, a significant number of capital projects, many of which are funded by grants, state and federal grants, but a significant number of capital projects are associated with this budget, and we'll talk about all of those. You can't click out of there. Or I have a dead battery. Here I am lecturing you.
Can we budget for new batteries?
Next slide, please. Tyler, if you'll be my clicker. This budget has several employee adjustments and new positions. You met 3 of the new positions tonight, which is not uncommon, but due to circumstances that we experienced last with the retirement of 2 of our wonderful police officers, we had to hire 2, and the police department will tell you, and we all certainly agree, their hiring process is long and intense. And so if you can limit the number of times you have to go through that months-long hiring process, it's better for everybody. So as you were all involved, we approved them to hire the 3 positions that are a part of the fiscal year 2020 budget a little bit early. Interestingly, 3 of the individuals that you swore in today, were sworn in today, are new officers, and they won't be road ready, they won't be done with their field training experience until after July anyways, correct? So even though we've hired them, they will not be on the road as a new officer because of the extensive on-the-job training they go through, we call field training. So they actually won't be on the road until after July 1 anyway. In addition to that, Public Works has proposed to hire an additional inspector and a staff engineer. That staff engineer position and engineering training they have budgeted for specifically is a half year, and this budget would be a full year, obviously, following that, but they wanted to budget for that position starting in January. In the finance office, they're proposing to have a permanent part-time utility clerk, which is a fancy term for a part-time employee that also gets some benefits. We call them permanent part-time employees. They've also proposed to convert another part-time employee that they have currently to permanent part-time status, and community development has proposed the same. Those are the major employee changes. One I didn't highlight on this slide because I ran out of space, but we are also proposing to adjust the hours at the fire station, the hours that our EMTs are stationed there at the fire station. Oh, I did get it in there. So currently they're from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and we are proposing to put them from 7 a.m. to midnight. If they do that, they will cover 85%, slightly more than 85% of all ambulance calls from the station. They'll have somebody there. So from midnight to 6 a.m., midnight to 7 a.m., we experience about 15% total call volume. That's how that works out.
Do our existing volunteers they're all okay with that? Is their shifts?
Our EMT part-time employees?
Right.
Are they all okay with it? Probably not, but they'll work through those scheduling issues and do the best that they can. Yeah. I think the best thing that we have going for us as we're working through all these challenges, we're being very transparent with everybody and have had significant conversations, and Ryan participates, our deputy chief participates in those discussions. So all of these changes that are coming, everybody's participating in and seeing them coming, so nobody should be really surprised.
I've not heard anything to the contrary, so I was just curious.
I have heard some in the past about, when you make me stay at the station, I probably won't want to do that. And we do not want to lose the great employees that we have. And the ambulance people are employees, they're part-time employees. The fire employees are volunteers. We don't want to lose any of those individuals, whether they're the employees or volunteers. So everything we do with an eye of how can we make it work for everybody as best as we can. Doesn't mean we fit everybody into whatever box we're now going to. And most important, I think, is as we move forward, we've been doing this for about the last 10 years, making system changes, and they're slow changes. We're trying to make it work the Spanish Fork way, not necessarily the let's throw millions of dollars at it way. We can solve anything by doing that, but we spend a lot of money also in the process that we don't necessarily have to. So these are great, slow, one step at a time kind of changes, and I think they get us to the right place. They just get us there a little bit slower and save money along the way. So those are the major position employee changes that we have. Stop me at any time. I'll talk about anything else you want to talk about as we go along.
Stop you anytime.
To ask a question, please. Come on. I mean, on Christmas morning, when your children were opening presents, did you take presents away from them?
Yeah.
Come on. Killing me, Smalls.
Mayor.
Meanie.
Get the pogo stick first.
All right. So the compensation and benefits associated with this budget, there are raises associated with the changes presented in this tentative budget. The raises will follow the program that has been long established here at Spanish Fork City. We made major changes to our compensation system in 2007 and have been following that program ever since, and it's done wonders for us. Our employees understand it for the most part. Some I'm sure don't, but for the most part they do, and it's doing really well for us. Our employees perform well, and they get rewarded for that high performance. And I want to touch on something though that that is absolutely worth highlighting, and that is we made changes to our employee health insurance in 2016, July of 2016. And it was a significant change. We moved to the Select Health Share program, which was a new health insurance plan, revolutionary in the world, if you will. I say that because no other insurance company in any states was doing anything like this. It required doctors to do things differently. It required employers, Spanish Fork City, to do things differently with their employees. And it required employees, me as an individual, to do things differently, all with the eye to be invested in how I utilize healthcare. And it came with requirements that we had to get employees to hit certain high standards, like 50% participation in certain programs, then 60, and now 70. And I think it's plateaued at 70, right? We were scared about that. But our premiums significantly changed once we went into that. So let me just show you, we'll walk down memory lane for just a second. Prior to this change in 2017, we were experiencing insurance premium changes that resulted in an average over that 7-year period of 10.1%. And that is with us making changes along the way. Some of these years, the percent that we had is only there because we increased the deductible or decreased some level of benefit to get that increase down to whatever that percent was. So we were going the wrong direction. Since 2017, that first year with that change, we dropped 2%. Then by contract, the next year we were at 4%. You might remember that we were supposed to have 3 years at 4%, but you'll notice that we didn't. They changed, because of the success of that plan, they changed their contract with us and decreased it from a 4% renewal to a 2% renewal. Our renewals, if you take the last 4 years, have been in 1.5%. So we went from a 10% average to a 1.5% average in that 6 years and 4 year period. So let's talk dollars and cents for a minute. What are you smiling at?
I just wanted to use the Tommy Boy quote.
Okay, go for it.
Let's say the average person uses 10% of their brain. How much do you use? 1.5%. The rest is clogged with malted hops and bong resin.
Sorry,
that's the quote.
Move on.
That's the quote.
I'm going to quote a movie roughly of the same time period.
Okay.
Joe versus the Volcano. I have no response to that.
Perfect.
All right, so talking dollars and cents.
Oh, geez. Focus.
If this column here shows you what our premiums did and the percent change, and if this is supposed to say 6 right here, something changed in the formulas, so that's all right.
We would have never known.
If the premium would have been 6%, this number would say 6. These numbers would be slightly less. If the premium average stayed at 10%, these would be the actual premiums. The savings in a 4-year span, if these numbers were correct, you would see a 4-year savings of between 1.5 or 1.3 million, $1.3 million to $2.5 million. Somewhere in that range, right? Because we're saying what ifs, and so I can't give you a solid dollar amount. But if we had averaged 6%, which is better than we were, 4% better than we were, which I'd have been happy averaging 6%. I don't know what's going on here. But if we would have continued at 10%, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Gosh.
Go back. It's all right. Go back. I'll elicit some other comment about Tommy Boy.
It's on a timer, so you got to keep moving.
Thank you, though. This fiscal year alone, if we would have been at 6% or if we would have been at 10%, the range of savings in this fiscal year alone would have been $500,000, $537 as it shows here, to $1.07 million. Anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million in this fiscal year alone. That's huge because we made a change in 2016. So my hat's off to you guys. You were brave. This was a real lot. This was a scary change. And the employees were brave with us. And it is paying off. I remember Tyler and I in a meeting with the employees saying, we cannot sustain 10%. This is a trajectory that just we can't do. And all the employees together said, let's change it together then. And here we are, 4 years later, seeing significant reductions. Probably won't talk about this again in coming years because at some point the new reality is what the new reality is. But we wanted to show you now in our 4th year, massive savings coming from that change. All right. This budget has a lot of capital projects. I told you a moment ago, there are roughly $18 million in capital projects in the general fund, enterprise funds, and in what we call capital project funds. $3.5 million, I do a lot of rounding. So $3.5 million, although the slide says 3.6. $3.5 million to purchase land. We have a few land projects. You're aware of all of those in some of our different areas. $800,000 worth of vehicles. That are new commitments that not all new commitments, some replacement. And then construction projects of $14 million. That's a significant sum at $14 million. We're going to go over every single one of those projects.
In our own time.
In your own time. Specifically in this budget with some of the equipment, we're buying an incident command trailer. I don't know if I said that right, Chief. Incident command trailer that the police have proposed. We're proposing that to you in this tentative budget. Some equipment in Parks and Recreation, other new vehicles to the fleet, and replacement of old vehicles. All right. Capital projects. There are a whole host of capital projects. We're going to run through some of them. This is what you're going to see happening around town in the next 12 months. A roundabout at 4th North and 8th East. The widening project at Center Street, the east end of Center Street. The last home is under contract. You can see it in this picture right there. That last home is under contract. We should own it by the end of May. And that construction project should start at the end or near the end of school, not this month, but a year from now. And should be completed, substantially completed, so as to not impact the start of school next fall. 2020?
The repainting of lines that just went there have helped already. Made it a lot better.
Well, this budget includes funds to extend Spanish Fork Parkway. This is a street that dead ends right here with construction, as you see right here, the road to nowhere. But it will continue on toward the Springville Highway 51. Eventually we'll have to cross those railroad tracks. This year there are funds to take it about 2/3 of the way, and then next year hopefully we'll have the railroad permit and ready to go and the funds for that in addition to our funds, and we'll take that road all the way over. That'll be fantastic, won't it? Yeah. All right. There are capital funds for road maintenance. You just talked about Station 62. Located on the corner of Spanish Fork Parkway and Canyon Road. That'll be constructed here in this location. You'll see groundbreaking in September, and it'll be opening 11 months, 12 months later in 2020. Let's pause for a moment and talk about holding the rate. Last year in the budget we proposed, and you acted on this proposal to hold the rate for the public safety fire station. When we held the rate at 0.000955, that generated about $145,000. All of that money went into the Fire Station Capital Projects Fund. At that time, we talked about holding the rate for 3 years for the fire station. So this year is the second of those 3 years. In this budget, we propose that you hold the rate again for that fire station. We don't know how much that will generate, but we'll know that probably in about a month as we get our numbers from the county. They update our certified tax rates, which then dictates how much the rate would have fallen and what we would hold the rate back to. But at the moment, we estimate it'll be similar, so it would throw off another additional $150,000. This budget has the money from last year and the money from this year going to it. So now we are transferring from the property tax revenues in this tentative budget roughly $300,000 into the Fire Station Capital Projects Fund in this budget. Next year, in the third year of that proposal, there would be $450,000, taking the increment of all 3 of those years, $450,000 going towards the fire station. And then year 4, there wouldn't be a property tax increase for the fire station, and that new money there would be used no longer for the capital of building the building, but it would be used for operation and augmenting the fire operations that we have today, fire and ambulance operations. That's been the plan. This is the second of 3 years for that. We'll talk more about property tax in just a moment. Any questions, though, on that? That is proposed in this budget. All right. Legacy Farms. This is out by that Spanish Fork Parkway we were just looking at. Legacy Farms, if you look from Spanish Fork Parkway to today, this park area looks like this. The trail is in, but the dirt is there with nothing green. This budget has funds, some of which comes from the developer in that area, and some of which comes from impact fees to improve this entire acreage, put a pavilion, a very, very nice play facility. Can we tell them what kind of play facility? Are we okay with that? That's not some surprise, is it? Mm-hmm. It's a farm implement type of playground. It's really cool. It's a farm theme. So really, it's going to be really cool. And we believe the neighbors and the community will really enjoy the Legacy Farms Park. So again, money for this, about $1.5 million from impact fees as well as from the developer. This budget also has funds to start construction of a park we are currently referring to as Triangle Park. I say currently referring to because there's some discussion amongst residents around the area they'd like to change the name. I don't think that you will like the name that they're proposing, so we won't talk about it. But we're referring to it as Triangle Park because of some of its angles.
Yeah, that's what they want.
So the Legacy Farms Park will start construction soon, within the next couple of weeks actually, and it'll be completed before the end of this year. Triangle Park will be a project that we start construction on next year, and it will be, so Legacy Farms is a 2019 park, Triangle Park is a 2020 park. Some money in this budget is allocated for that, but the majority of that park construction will happen and be budgeted for in the 2021 budget. We're continuing the Fiber to the Home project and upgrading the community, the entire town, to Fiber to the Home. How is it?
It's awesome. It is fantastic.
Kier?
It's
super fast.
It's Brian. Let me just
Super
Ours
fast.
isn't working currently.
let me just go on record, and if John and Brian are listening, it is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me just go on record and say I'm the only one up here that doesn't have it.
And who are you?
You got to stop
Yeah.
telling Tommy Boy jokes.
In
Is that
every
what it is?
race.
Tommy Boy jokes?
In every race,
There's
there
got to
is
be a
loser.
Clydesdale.
There is
There's got to be a zebra.
Sorry.
Zebras and horses.
Zebras and horses.
All you see is the zebra. Why can't you see past
Yeah,
the
sure.
zebras?
They are past 50%. They are somewhere, I'd estimate, somewhere around 60+% done with our town. Upgrading, no increase in your rates, and no increase in the debt service for that. What an amazing project. This budget includes funds to upgrade 2 substations, Whitehead and Industrial. You'll recall we started the purchase of some of these transformers about 4 months ago. There's a significant lead time on these, so you'll see the construction of one of these substations finish in this fiscal year. You won't even see the construction of the other one until next year. That's how much time and the size of that. So major time and investment in that electric utility, among other electric projects. Our residential sprinkler clocks project will continue this year. This budget also includes water line loops in the northern part of town. We've got some areas of town that have water lines that dead end, and when you have a water system that dead ends, water isn't quite as fresh at the end of those lines. So the water division is proposing a loop in that area that will help with some development also in those areas as they want to develop, but will improve the quality of the water system. Sewer line maintenance and replacement for the last year or two, Chris and Corey in Public Works, and specifically the sewer collection, they have withheld some sewer maintenance, sewer replacement projects because they wanted to understand the scope of issues. And so they've been putting cameras in the sewer lines. That sounds terrible. But they've been doing videos in the major sewer lines and the pipes, right? Dirty movies. and now know where all of our major priorities are, and so they will start doing those priority locations. Also in this budget includes an improvement, a rebuild, or at least a major overhaul to the east digester. This is a view of the top of the east digester at our sewer treatment plant. As Chris mentioned, I believe a few moments ago, the sewer treatment plant is in need of a major rebuild as it nears the end of its functional life. It was last rebuilt and overhauled in 1983, so it's reaching the end of its life. And so we are planning for, and in the initial stages, there are funds in this budget for consultants to help us identify the best and most cost-effective way to do that. But it will be a major project, and it will span many years, and it will cost a lot of money. And all the residents of Spanish Fork need it because all the residents of Spanish Fork use this. This isn't a growth-related issue. This is an end-of-life issue for a service that we have all been using there at this sewer treatment plant. There are funds in here for airport apron and taxiway. This is funded in large part by federal grants with relatively speaking, minimal investments from us, about a 5% match from us. This taxiway specifically will be built for some development that is proposed to occur right here with a local company that wants to locate there on Main Street with access to our airport. This budget has construction of trails. There are two major construction projects. The one that is currently underway and will finish that is along Poplar Lane and up Dripping Rock. If you've been out and walking along those areas, they're continuing right now, and great improvements to the trail system. There's also one we're working on and don't have all the details finalized with Rocky Mountain Power, but to be in the Rocky Mountain Power corridor along in the Legacy Farms area. In this area today, residents would look at it and say, well, what is going to happen there? And the answer is nothing. The land is owned by Rocky Mountain Power.
Good place to dump the grass clippings.
Or cement collars and other stuff. They aren't in the business of doing anything with their property. We're working with them to have a long-term lease on this, and with some money from the developer in that project area, and also potentially with some monies from us as we go along. This is a trail project that we can create that could go from the mouth of the canyon all the way to the all the way to the railroad tracks, and maybe beyond, hopefully beyond. A vision that we all collectively have is maybe this trail could even connect into Springville and to Provo, depending on the vision and capabilities there. So a great corridor, though, for us to work on, and there are some funds to start that this year. The budget also has some money to do some upgrades, more upgrades at the fairgrounds. We've been biting this off one apple at a time, one is that right? One elephant piece at a time. You guys remember how the High Chaparral looked 2 years ago and how it looks today? Wow. We're doing that little by little, upgrading the appearance of the fairgrounds because it is a Main Street business. Man, we want to make sure that we project the right image. Main Street's important as well. So this has funds to do some work around, finish the work around the Heritage Arena, and then also the tennis court building, and solve some water problems that the tennis court building has. All right, that's some of the major capital projects that we have in this budget. Any more you want to talk about? Shoot.
We'll call you.
Okay.
See, I've got her trained well.
All right. This budget has money going into the RAP program. Voters approved the RAP tax in the election, 1.1% added to the sales tax in Spanish Fork. Kent has created a special revenue fund where this money will be captured. It's not actually mingled within the general fund. It's in a special revenue fund. And we estimate about $550,000. You'll actually start to see some applications come to you in the month of June. That will be reviewed by the RAP committee that you appointed several weeks ago. Applications are starting to come in, although we don't have many yet. We don't anticipate, honestly, that we'll get too many applications this year because there aren't many nonprofit organizations that do recreations, arts, and parks. But we hope that organizations will either branch out or get created to help expand the recreation arts and arts programs, cultural arts programs in our community. In addition to any nonprofits, though, we do know that the arts program, Arts Council that we have in city can use those funds in many ways. All right. I'm going to let Kent take over because it's his Christmas too. Yay.
We're going to talk numbers now. Pictures are
You got candy?
candy. Yeah, Angie's got it.
See ya. See ya.
I'm going to give you the 10,000-mile high view of the budget.
Thank you.
Okay?
What's next?
So I'm done. No.
Thank you.
We're in the red column over there, so you can see that the budget we have is 105 million, which is down from last year, and anticipating that we will have enough funds for that, using some reserves. Like the electric department will use some of their reserves this year because they have 2 big substations in there. Here's the general fund. The budget is about 800,000, 900,000. You can see which departments had big, this is this year's, or last year's, the current year, and this is the 20. So some have gone down, some have gone up in total. So here is the miscellaneous funds on that pie chart. And this is the one special revenue fund that has been created. It wasn't here last time. Anticipating the 500,000 will come in that and be spent out of that fund also. You can see a lot of the capital projects. There's a lot this year. There's still a lot of capital projects that are in there for this next year. And the utilities fund. Also, we refined a lot of the capital projects, making sure we're budgeting for the ones we think we're really going to spend. This budget here maybe has some budgets or projects that are in there that they're not going to get to in this year, and so it's going to roll forward to the next year, and we're just budgeting the ones that we actually think we can spend, get to those projects. That's why it went down. Again, the total budget, and this is called the tentative budget, and so tonight a motion will be made to adopt the tentative budget, and if you don't do anything else, that becomes the budget. But it's anticipated us, we're going to talk a little bit more about property tax. If you did not change, if you accept the certified tax rate that the state gives you, we would adopt the budget and that tax rate in June. If we hold the rate, or if we increase the rate any, then we have to wait and do our public hearing in August and have public input until August and have a public hearing, and then adopt that certified tax rate, or the new proposed rate won't be until August when it was finally done. So the budget will continue on under the tentative budget until it's finally adopted in August when that property tax rate's set. Okay? I'll talk a second about sales tax. It's always nice to see the growth in sales tax, because as the city grows, we need revenue. And property tax is pretty flat. We're proposing to maybe increase the property tax a little bit this year, but sales tax, we know what's going on in the commercial district, and we're excited that it continues to grow. It provides funds for our citizens to be able to use, to receive those benefits. People shopping from outside, Springville, Payson, Carbon County, that are shopping in our town, our residents reap the reward of the sales tax during that. So those three numbers, the 7.4 is the current year one. The other two are what's proposed we think we're going to get this year and next year. So you can see how that's going to grow over the next 2 years. Here's a puzzle pie piece of our property tax rate. So if you think of each of your houses, in November when you pay your property tax bill, you can see the lion's share of the property tax bill that you write that $2,000, $3,000 check for property tax goes to the school district. We're only 8% of that property tax bill. And you can see the other players or the other taxing entities that are part of that property tax on your house or on your business. Here's where, after last year, we held the rate. We didn't let it fall. And the reason why the tax rate falls is each year your value on your home mostly has been going up over the past 50 years. Some years, 1 year or 2 years, it's actually declined. In the recession years, they've declined that value. But mostly it goes up. The city does not get to capture that growth in your home's value going up. By state law, we get to collect whatever taxes we got last year, plus any new homes or new businesses that get built, we get to capture those new ones. So we don't get any new tax. And so as the denominator goes up and the numerator stays the same, it causes the property tax rate to fall. And so as we talk about holding the rate, it gives a chance the city to capture inflation for our own services in holding the rate, and we get to capture the value of the homes increasing in value on those small amounts, okay? So last year we held it at $955, if you can see that number here. The average home last year it was $265,000 was the average home. We're waiting to see what that average home price is. It's probably going to go up. And with that, it will cause our certified tax rate to go down, and that's when we, in order to fund the fire station, we're saying let's hold that rate at $955 and capture whatever increased in value everyone's homes across the town is. Last year it was a very small amount. Here's we look at when it held right here, we held it at $955. The impact on the average house was $10 for the whole year for an annual amount by holding the rate. So it isn't a dramatic increase, but it does give us an opportunity to capture inflation in through the property tax rate. Okay, I think I'll let Seth. This is his spreadsheet.
Chapter 2. So what we did last year with the property tax rate, as Kent just described for the fire station, is we've been discussing the needs of the community library. There is a need to build a new library. The library that we have is dramatically undersized and heavily utilized. And as we've been talking about the library now for probably 4 years, and specifically with you since 2015, we've been talking about what can we do, what should we do, and how do we proceed. The direction we've been given is to identify ways that we could fund construction of a library, a new library. And we have proposed that we not only, that we use a property tax increase, a small property tax increase, to fund a portion of the proceeds for a library building. So if you look at this graph, if we were to, we estimate at this moment, thank you, Chief. We estimate at this moment that that a new library facility would cost somewhere around $12 million. We don't know for sure, but we're basing that off of potential square footages and average cost per square footage as we compare with recent builds. We think it'll be about $12 million. We propose that we generate $7.5 million worth of that $12 million. So about 2/3 be covered by a property tax increase. So if we focus on this column, based on rates and things like that, if we were to want to pay the mortgage on $7.5 million of a bond with property tax, we would need to raise property tax $3 a month to the average home. We don't need, and we're not capable of building the library for a couple of years. So we're in a great position that we can, looking forward, plan for the construction of a library and make some adjustments to the property tax, that a little bit this year and a little bit in the next year and the year after that. So it won't be a hardship, a tremendous hardship on the residents. Now, when I speak about property tax, I have to recognize that for some it will be a hardship, and I don't mean to minimize that. But the proposal that we'll walk through tries to minimize that impact year after year on the residents. So keeping your eye on that total, $3, what we would propose is to follow a similar path that you have identified with the fire station, where you plan to hold the rate for the property tax for 3 years, and we're in year 2. We would propose that you do a different 3-year strategy for the library and actually increase the rate in addition to that holding of the rate. So now I'm going to use 4 fingers. 3 years of the fire station, 3 years of the library, and 2 years overlap, okay? We would recommend and propose, and this budget proposes, that we increase the property tax by $1 to the average home this year, $1 to the average home next year, and $1 to the average home the year after that. We would be holding the rate this year, so the net impact to the resident this year would be $1.81. Today, these are estimated numbers. We'll get real numbers from the county when they update certified tax rates in about a month. But today, the net impact for a month to the average home is $1.81. The net impact on the year is about $21.75. Next year, we would do the same. These numbers are really just ballparks because there are a lot of guesses going into inflation rates and property values and things like that. But the idea is for the library, we're simply identifying $1, whatever the rate is, to increase $1 to the average home. That's what we would propose next year and the year after that. So fiscal year 2020, the year we're in, you would hold the rate for the fire station and increase the rate for the library. Next year, fiscal year 21, you would hold the rate for the public safety for the fire station, and you would increase $1 for the library. Fiscal year 22, we've now hit and finished our 3rd year for the fire station. So you see, there's nothing in that section for the fire station, and you would simply increase the rate for the library. Depending on how things go, it might be that you're not even holding the rate that year, but you've just identified the dollar. It just depends on how the numbers come down from the county. But that's the concept. And then the remaining, so if we do this, we would have enough money after the 3 years that we could bond for the library, and property tax would pay for $7.5 million of that bond. If at $12 million, we would identify other sources from which we could get that money. So the residents wouldn't be bonding for, with property tax, all of the money to construct it, but at this moment we're estimating about 2/3 would come from property tax. The rest could come from other sources, money that we save and other sources. That is the concept that we propose in this budget. So there's a capital projects fund that is created that would capture that growth. It would not go into the general fund. It would go into the library capital projects fund. And we would use that money to start the engineering, architecture, and things like that. And we anticipate construction would start on the library sometime in 2021 and could start in 2021 and could be completed in the spring or summer of 2022. We'll know a lot more in the next couple of months, but that's the tentative thought with regards to that library project.
Okay, so that's enough for the property tax. As information to you and to the citizens, this is what the city is in debt in right now, just to give you a snapshot. We're talking about issuing new bonds. How much bonds does the city have? That's usually the question that comes up next, is how much do we have? Right now we have 3 bonds that are outstanding. 2 of them are water bonds. This one here is a very low, it's a state drinking water. It's very low interest rate. It's done from the Crab Creek lines up at the canyon and some water lines. And this is another PIN water bond issue of $4 million. There's only 3 years left on that bond, and then that bond will be paid off. This sales tax bond here is the Justice Center and a little bit of North Park, when the North Park was done. And that runs out. It was required to go clear to the 2027 because it's shared with the state courts, and they pay half of our debt payment right here is paid by the courts. So half of that debt service payment is paid by somebody else besides the city. Okay. This is a list of all the fleet, all the equipment, just to give you an idea. This is everything that gets replaced each year. This is next year's replacements as items are being replaced in all the different departments. You can see parks, the golf course, storm drain, broadband, how much we're estimating. The Fleet Services Division, Motor Pool, owns all the equipment, and they charge a lease back to each of the departments. For example, for the police department, as they replace their vehicles each year, they get charged an annual lease payment. And so by the time that lease payment, it's time to replace it, those funds are already collected as a lease payment through each year's assessment, and that way it funds those replacements. And so it's not some new money we have to come up to every year. We fund it, so it's a level type debt service for those vehicles. Here's something I need you to think about. This is presented to you, and this is a list of the donations or fee waivers, cash donations of different people who have come and asked. We have a public hearing next month, and by state law, we are required, in order for you to give a donation of some kind to somebody or something, you need to hold a public hearing so the public has an opportunity to hear or to have a say on how their tax dollars are used and how they're being donated. So next month, as part of the budget public hearing, we will be asking you if you want to make any adjustments to these, do you want to add anybody, if anybody approaches you. Now's the time for those people to come and ask for a donation, and for the council as a whole to approve that donation, and then the donation can be made. So anyway, this is in the budget document. You can look through each of those, but you've got a month to see if there's any changes to that. Again, the budget tonight is you approve the tentative budget of $105,504,044. Is that the end? I think we're to the end.
Wow. Oh, no.
Chapter 3. I just have to say, it is an absolute pleasure to work with each of the division managers and department directors. I think they would say to you that they work on the budget 360 days out of the year. And that is true because the budget is always changing, and they're always thinking about the future, and they're always planning and preparing. But you have in this room, and some not here tonight, some of the finest directors that I think exist in the state of Utah. And equally fine are their division managers and the employees that work here for the city. They care deeply about the community. They care deeply about the responsibility that we have entrusted on them and the positions that they hold. And it's a joy to work with them. It's equally fun to spend a lot of time with Kent. He and I get to know each other pretty well through the last month as we spend days and days holed up together, going into the war room and working on the budget and getting things figured out. But I appreciate the effort, the tireless effort on behalf of everybody. And now, each director has prepared a 10-minute presentation, very brief.
Only if they want to stay employed. They won't be doing that.
No, but is there anything that I have missed that you would like touched on? Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm sure after that great presentation, there is no questions or comments or editorials, but I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 2020.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scopes, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Yes.
I move we go into closed session for reasonably imminent litigation and land transaction.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.